Ladies and gentlemen, this is Art of MMA Conversations. This is our third episode of this really cool series that we started off on the side. Everybody knows we've been rolling with the podcast now for 6 weeks strong. This is our third one. We're doing interviews with fighters, kind of getting back to our roots. As everybody knows, we interviewed fighters from about 2013 all the way through probably about 2017, 2018. Funny enough, the guest I have today was our very last print interview that we did with artofmma.com. So you can go on dcxiv.com, check it out, search Ryan Cafaro, and it comes right up. So without any more interruptions, let me introduce our guest. I'm talking about Korean Thunder. I'm talking about Ryan Cafaro, MMA fighter, striking coach to the stars. He seems to be in high demand every 5 seconds. He's flying off to Abu Dhabi. So Ryan, welcome, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show.
No, I appreciate it. You've been rocking with us for a while, and I definitely appreciate the love. So you've been busy, man. I want to talk about your MMA career, but you've been busier coaching this last year.
And so with the pandemic and the amount of fights I have on being on the regional circuit with the record I have, my current pro record is 7-5, and I think it's a little. I've definitely underperformed in terms of what I know I'm capable of in some of my more important fights. But during the pandemic, I just had a hard time getting fights, and then the people that I was coaching, they just constantly needed me. So one of the main fighter that I coach right now is Sajar Eubanks, and
Sarge.
I've cornered Sarge 3 times this year already.
You've been over there with Sarge and Katlyn, blonde fighter, Chookagian.
Sarge hit the trifecta. She fought at the first UFC event, not the first one, but the first series of events in Florida. She fought at the Apex in Vegas, and then she also has now fought on Fight Island. So I cornered her for all 3. In addition, I've cornered Katlyn Chookagian twice, once at the Apex, once on Fight Island. I work with Claudia Gadelia. I work with Frankie Edgar.
I saw Claudia credited you with the reason why she knew where and how to strike Ronda and get her out of there, that fight.
Marcos. Yeah. Can get her out of there, but it definitely there were some key moments in that fight that I had analyzed on tape. Mark Henry and we work very, very well together. It took Mark Henry and I a little while to find our niche and to find the give and take, because as a coach you need to find a fluidity, especially with a team of multiple coaches.
It's not just the fighters, it's the coaches too. It's all about chemistry.
Yeah, I've been in corners where people just scream over each other and nothing gets done. But Mark and I have a very, very smooth relationship and a smooth chemistry when we work in the corner. I let Mark lead. He tells me, I tell him what I see in the corner. Like he's focusing on the fighter, I'm focusing on the opponent, seeing their tendencies. If a hand's low or a leg is vulnerable, something of that nature. But with Claudia and Randa Marcos, I broke down some footage on her, and I just noticed one of the key things about Randa Marcos was she had a tendency that every time she got kicked low, she would bite hard and look low. So then every time an opponent kicked low and then kicked high, they landed a kick on her face. And you literally hear it in the first round. After Claudia lands a low kick, you hear me yell eyes, and then Claudia looked down, ran a bit, and then Claudia kicked her in the face. And if it was a little further forward, I think she would have put her out with a head kick.
Yeah, I saw Dern try to do the same thing. I don't know if she learned it from Claudia, but I saw she slipped when she tried to throw that high kick, but you kind of saw the same thing where she kind of led low and then went high.
I mean, at that point, it's happened after Claudia's fight. I believe that's happened 3 times in Randa Marcos' fights. So if you have a legitimate coach or even a coach that can just understand the basics of breaking down footage, they would pick up on that.
Do you think that's something that Marcos can change, or is that just a natural tendency for her to kind of go for the feint?
I don't know. I don't train her, so I'm not in her corner, and I don't.
Not your problem.
It's kind of like that's kind of her deal to figure out. So, I think she's a great fighter.
So what you're saying is Ronda needs to get on the phone and call the striking coach of the stars and get some coaching.
But yeah, I like Randa Marcos. I think she's a great fighter.
She's tough. She's super tough. I was surprised that. I mean, we all know there's levels to this, and Mackenzie Dern's jiu-jitsu is on a level that most girls don't have. But I was surprised she got Marcos out of there so fast. I thought it was gonna be a tougher, like more 2-3 round fight.
Yeah, I mean, there's black belts and then there's black belts.
Yeah,
So.
we talk about that all the time. Sergio, Sergio da Silva, like, yeah, Sergio talks about it every episode. Like, there's just levels to it, whether it's striking or on the ground. There's some people that have a rudimentary level to it, and then there's some people that just are masters at it.
I mean, I'm technically a blue belt, so I've been a blue belt for like a decade at this point. But I can give I've given purple through black a run for their money in in the gym, in the room, in the fights, in jiu-jitsu tournaments. Actually, I just went to I was at one of the last grappling tournaments before COVID hit. I think it was like a sub only thing, and I beat 2 purple belts and then lost in the finals of gi, and I don't even train gi. I just put the thing on, and I'm like, I hope you don't choke me with it because I don't know what I'm doing. And I also had 2 pretty competitive no gi matches with high level black belts. So I'm definitely, just because what am I trying to say? If you just look at someone and read their belt and assume that that's their level, you can often be in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, so, experience and knowledge and just aggression sometimes can hurt you or help you, but
yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of factors.
Yeah,
but let's back up a little bit. So we know what you're doing now, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But we are here to talk about you just as much as as your girls that you're coaching up right now.
Yeah.
And I definitely will want to get into like Mark Henry and Frankie Edgar and that whole history there too, because I was looking at some background pictures of you on Instagram and stuff, and I saw the group of you guys together, and y'all have been together for a while. So I think that'd be a pretty cool story. But let's back up. So I was going over our original interview you did with Eric Johnson, our lead interviewer from artofmma.com, and you were doing it, and you said your very first the thing that got you into MMA was watching Evan Tanner and David LaSalle on TV back when you were in high school, I believe, or something.
Yeah, I was watching. I remember it because it was such a clear point in my life. I was sitting in my mom's kitchen, and we had a little TV there, and I remember just flipping through channels, and I flipped to 53, which was Spike at the time. And Evan Tanner was fighting David Loazo, and I just remember watching, and I was like, "What is this?" I was like, "It looks like a full blown like fight in a cage." Like, I had seen,
as most Evan Tanner fights were.
Yeah, but I had seen fights.
Now, did you have martial arts background before that? Were you wrestling or doing martial arts or anything?
So I did Tang Soo Do when I was 7 for about a half a year, which is a more artistic form of Taekwondo, which focuses on forms and things like that. Developed a side kick off it and some flexibility. But I was young and I was 7 years old and nobody pushed me, so I quit. And then I wrestled in high school, lifted some weights, things of that nature. But what was it? Yeah, so I had a little bit of experience, but I knew with wrestling, I wanted to wrestle. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I was not that good. I was a 500 wrestler my senior year of varsity wrestling. But when I saw this on TV, I was like, I don't know what that is, but I want to do that. Because I remember Evan Tanner took down Loazo, and Loazo reversed him and then cut him with elbows. And I was like, whoa, like this is a sport. Like I'm interested in this because it was like the rawest form of fighting. Because
blood sport got your attention.
Yeah, and then another thing too was I've gotten into fights in high school. I wasn't, I was bullied a little bit, but I'm not like your atypical. I was bullied, and then I found fighting, and fighting saved my life. That story, which we've all heard a million times at this point. I fought people, and I just remember like, I'm like, all right, I'm going to use my Tang Soo Do, and I'm going to use all these martial arts that I see on TV, and then I just get punched in the face. And I was like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, I was about to say, realistically, because you said you were 7, how much of the Tang Soo Do did you even remember? Because like when I was younger, I took Taekwondo, and then I got up to like blue belt, and I quit, and then I later went over to Hapkido. I did Hapkido until I was up to about a brown belt, but and then I did every sport possible, football, baseball, basketball. But when I got in a fight, especially in my older years, like it was, throwing fists, wrestling to the ground. It wasn't anything technical. Because it was years removed from my actual martial arts. So
I would say I kept a sidekick. I tried that in one fight, in like a fight, and it landed, and then I got punched in the face, and because I had no real live sparring, You know what I mean? Like I could train all these forms and, do this and that and so on and so forth. And then you go like this and someone pops you with a straight punch in the face and it's like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
So, but it was raw, and I saw it on TV and I was like, this looks like real fighting. I want to be a good fighter. So I started training through that. I found a Tiger Schulman's near my house, and we did like a 1 month trial, and I think I took like 2 classes a day every day for the entire month, and I ultimately signed up for it and trained at a Tiger Schulman's gym for a while there. But
was that the one up in New Jersey?
Yep, in Cherry Hill, New Jersey.
Okay.
So it's still there.
We have Brandon Catino on every week. So.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, he's one of the co-hosts on the podcast. Him and Sergio I have on every week. So.
Got it. Well, that essentially was my first that was my origin of where I started. So not a lot of people know I was originally a Tiger Schulman's product. So
yeah, I keep trying to get him to get Tiger on.
Yeah,
like, I was like, Tiger's still around? He's like, yeah, Tiger's still around. I'm like, all right, get him on the show. Like, I would love to talk to that guy.
UFC fights, I'm sure he's a busy individual.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, that guy, from what I understand, plus he has what, like 4, 5, 6 schools now?
I mean, I don't know how many Tiger Schulmans there are. I could have sworn there was 50 or something along those lines.
There may be, yeah. I know of like the major ones, but I'm sure there's a lot of smaller ones too.
Got to be branches and chains of those things all over the place. I mean, they do have
like the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is like everywhere.
Yeah, but the Tiger Schulman's program, they have a very solid foundation they build with very fundamental kickboxing, fundamental jiu-jitsu, and then at their headquarters, I'm pretty sure they draw from this massive pool of talent, and then they hone these killers like Lyman Good, Nicholas Pace, Louis Gaudinot, Shane Burgos. Shane Burgos and I actually made our amateur debuts on the same night.
Hurricane Shane B. I said Hurricane Shane B.
Yep. So Hurricane Shane, I was there, and he fought one of my teammates and beat him by decision. And I remember that was motivation because both my teammates lost that night. And I was like, not me. And I won my first amateur fight in like 45 seconds.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was looking at your record. You've had some setbacks, but you always seem to kind of bounce back. Like your first pro fight, you lost in Bellator.
Yeah.
Which I mean, it says something about your amateur career to the fact that you started off on a main promotion. I know Bellator, especially back then, was definitely like giving a lot of up and coming fighters a chance.
Yeah.
But you did that, and then you won a couple fights. You lost, and then you won some more fights. You lost a couple fights, and then you won a fight, and you lost a fight. You kind of been back and forth, especially this last year, or I guess you fought 3 times last year, and you lost 2 but won 1.
Yeah.
You always seem to bounce back. I mean, it's never like you stay down.
I mean, I've just like if you look at my record and you go back and you look at some of the people I beat, I was the last fight on a lot of these guys' records, and a lot of this game is just I don't think it's about who's the best. It's who's willing to endure and adapt longer than most people. You know what I mean? I'm 31 years old now, but I'm a young 31. I have in all my fights I've been cut once. That was the worst injury I've ever had, aside from the usual stuff. You hurt a ligament here, you hurt a shoulder there, but nothing. Out of every injury I've had, I had one bad neck injury and a cut on my forehead that involved 14 stitches. But aside from that,
if I take this hat off, you'll see like 9 scars on my head, so I know it well.
Yeah, I'm fresh. I don't have a lot of mileage on me. I'm not punch drunk. I'm well spoken. I diet year round. If you talk to the people that are around me, they're like, kids eating sardines out of his car. It's annoying. Paul Felder hates it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Does he hate that more than the video you posted of him like mopping the mat?
Yeah. He despises the fact that I eat sardines, especially like Paul and I have been in the thick of it since I was an amateur and he was maybe 1-0 pro. His coach Jason Sargis at the time brought me in to help him fight Bobby Fabrizi, who was a bit of a guillotine specialist. And
I remember Bobby. I remember Bobby from CFFC.
If you look at my record, I think I have 7 guillotine finishes in total between amateur and pro, something along those lines. So I'm pretty good with it. I mean, if you remember in our last
you said you punch somebody till it hurts, and then you grab their neck and choke them out, or something along those lines.
So, yeah,
that was the quote of the article right there. You said you punch somebody until it hurts, or till they hurt.
Yeah,
I think that was one of the best lines. I love that one. So how'd you get from Tiger Schulman's over to Nicotone and all those guys, and training with like Mark Henry and
Yeah.
Frankie Edgar and all those guys?
So Tiger Schulman's, I wanted to train, but I wanted to fight, but they didn't really. I don't think they wanted to book a fight because of the fact that I was too far away from headquarters. Like I drove up to headquarters to train once or twice, and it was just it was a long drive. And I would do grappling tournaments, and they have their own in-house series called Challenge of Champions, which is a great way to first start out with competition. And I did well in those tournaments, but I said I want to fight, I want to fight, I want to fight, find me a fight, and nobody would find me a fight. So eventually, when my membership ran out, I was like, all right, I'm gonna find something else, and I started training with. I was just finding gyms wherever I could. I found a gym called, I believe it was Advantage Wrestling Academy at the time, and there was a guy teaching jiu-jitsu there, and his name was Brian McPherson, and he was teaching an up-and-coming guy named Jonavin Webb. Funny how that works, right? So I
Yeah.
started, yeah. So I
As you
started,
know, Jonathan's a good friend of the show.
yeah. So I started working with Jonavin, and Jonavin's a great guy, and he actually is the last person to promote me. He promoted me to a blue belt.
It's kind of funny. It's like almost nepotism. If you look at the connection between the interviews we've done, whether it's print, whether it's on the podcast now, the 3 different episodes. One of like Alex Soto's a little different. He's a different connection. He's out in San Diego. He's doing his West Coast thing. But you, Jonavin, Shorty Rock, all these guys, like some of you are more directly connected than others. But it's just kind of crazy to play like the 6 degrees of separation on this show of all the guys, especially in that Northeast corridor that we're really good with. And, all you guys are great guys. We've interviewed Paul Felder before he ever made it big to UFC. I mean, I would love to have Paul on now. Next time he's mopping the mat, tell him to give me a call. but all you guys, like, and it's such a tight connection. And the fact that you guys train together from the beginning, you can just see how that breeded the killers. Like all of you guys just, tough makes it tougher. And you're cutting diamonds with diamonds. And it's just, you guys, like you talking about Shane, and you talking about all these guys.
Yeah, iron sharpens iron, the whole nine.
Yeah, and it's just, yeah, thank you. I was looking for the phrase and I just couldn't get it. But yeah, you guys just like all of you, the competition, and people asked me one time, I got a question on Twitter. It's like, why you guys show so much favoritism to CFFC? And I was like, well, at the time, they were probably one of the top 2 or 3 feeder promotions into the UFC.
Yeah.
You're talking about 3, 4, 5 years ago. Now they're obviously on the Fight Pass. Them, CES, LFA, all those guys.
Yeah.
But at the time, them, Titan, maybe LFA, I guess, was around at the time. But all you, like, that was where you went if you wanted to be seen by the UFC. And they were run by such a good, like, structure with Rob Hadak and Arias Garcia. And, by the time you got there, they had Burt Watson and some other people back there.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, like, to think about the amount of people that you see on that UFC card every week that came from that same area, whether it's Philly or New Jersey or any of that stuff. Sean Brady now with Jonavin Webb helping coach him up. Like, Sean Brady's poised to be the next big thing, He's probably one fight away from, like, being, like, stuck on that main card forever.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny that you say that about Burt Watson. I'm definitely one of the privileged and one of the last of a generation to hear it's yo fight, it's yo night.
We rolling, baby.
Up to get that speech. And then I remember one of my fights, I was like in the back room and I was shaking. I was like, come on, give it to me, Burt. And he yelled, we rolling. And oh man, like that experience, only a select generation of UFC fighters got to hear that, and a very small generation of CFFC fighters got to.
Yeah, I've said the story online a couple times, so I won't go over it too much, but I was lucky enough when he was at there was a card in Fairfax, Virginia, when I was living in Fairfax outside DC. And I had literally just moved back from Denver. I'd moved out to Denver for a few months, came back, and I used to work at that hotel all the fighters were staying at. And one of the I bartend for a living, and one of the bartenders like, Mike, you got to come over here. I know you're big into MMA. All the guys are here. And I mean, like, what do you mean all the guys? All of them. And then there's this black guy at the bar. I don't know who he is, but he's got like this giant watch, and he's got, he's like got this expensive jewelry on. And he says he's like one of the bosses. And I'm like, he's not Dana White. He's not, he's not Fertitta. Who is this guy? And so I come up there and I'm just chilling with my boy Brian, who's bartending, and here comes Burt Watson back around the corner because he had left and he came back and he's sitting there and he's drinking his Heineken and he's just sitting by himself. And I was like, hey, how are you? And, as a bartender, just kind of strike up a conversation. And then he sat there and talked to me like 45 minutes to an hour about everything but fighting. Like everything but fighting. And he was just like the most personable person. And later on, I obviously went down, I Googled him, figured out who he was. I interviewed him years later, right after he left UFC. And then that's how I kind of knew about his whole history with smoking Joe Frazier and all that great stuff that he's been through. But Bert's a legend, and the people that don't know him are really missing out. Like I love to tell people about Burt Watson.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me okay, one second. Go. But
she wanted a little too much attention.
Yeah, nah, she's just doors closed. But yeah, Bert's the man. But if we rewind back to your original question about how I got to work with Frankie,
transitioning,
yeah. So I went from Tiger Schulman's, and then there an LA boxing opened near my house, and I got cornered by guys named Ryan McAvoy, who was one of the owners at the time, Bill Duff from Human Weapon, if you remember that show.
No, I don't remember that one. I have to look it up.
On Discovery Channel. It was Bill Duff and this other guy, I forget his name, Jason something, and they were going around doing trying different martial arts styles and then trying to compete in them against the specialists in those martial arts, which was pretty cool. So he was kind of a pretty big name when he opened this LA boxing. And then I also worked with a Muay Thai coach of mine who's still a friend of mine to this day, Mike Castro. And I started my amateur career there, and then Mike Castro actually ended up training Ricardo Almeida for one of his fights.
Okay.
So he trained Professor Ricardo Almeida against, I believe he was getting ready for Matt Brown. So when that happened, Mike Castro would come down to Ricardo Almeida's, and then he would, bring me and bring my teammates Drew Aguilar, Ryan Worley at the time. So we would go there, and then I got to, I was maybe 1 to 3 fights into my amateur career, and I got to spar Frankie Edgar, which was pretty crazy. So, I remember, he stunned the hell out of me with a punch because,
So this is what, like back in like 2009, 10, something like that?
Yeah, I would say 2010 roughly, if I had to guess.
So that was back during his lightweight champion years?
He was either the champion at that point or he was on his way up.
Okay.
And I remember I'd seen him on TV in my friend's basement, and remember cheering for the Jersey guy, Frankie. And then, a couple of years later, I'm getting punched in the face by him. And it's so funny because, you see it on TV and they say like, oh, Frankie's not a power hitter. So you go to spar him and you're like, no, this guy probably doesn't hit this hard. Bang, and it stuns you. And you're like, what the hell? It's like, no, everyone hits hard. Everyone hits hard.
He hits hard, and he's also just tough. He's tough as leather. Like you can't. It's funny. Here we go. 6 degrees of separation. So Alex Soto also trained with Frankie. He brought him out to Bahrain when they were getting ready to start Brave and everything, and they wanted some American professionals to kind of help show them how to do things, and especially training.
Mm-hmm.
And he brought Frankie out. He was training with Khabib and stuff. And obviously Frankie has the same connection, Jonavin and Shorty and all you guys. And man, but like he's the one fighter. He's the first fighter to ever like a post that I wrote about him. Like I wrote an article about him that he's more about wins and losses. I don't remember the exact title of the article, but it was basically about his heart. It was just like, you go to see him fight, you don't really care if he wins or loses, because he lost a couple razor thin decisions to like Benson, and he came off those fights with Maynard and BJ and everybody else, and it's just like, if he wins, that's great. If he loses, doesn't matter. His fans, he's earned them, and so it doesn't matter how small Frankie is. Like Frankie's what, like 5'6", maybe,
yeah.
And he'll tear you up. Like, I don't care if you're 6 foot, probably 180 pounds. I would bet on Frankie.
You're talking about a guy who, soaking wet at 156, 58 pounds, something like that.
Yeah, he didn't even cut weight back then. He just went and fought.
He had to eat to keep his weight up, and he dominated the lightweight division. So that says it all. I mean, in my opinion, people are, talking about pound for pound this, pound for pound that. If you look at somebody who pound for pound is one of the greatest fighters on this planet, it's Frankie. So
I'll always put him and DJ up there.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, if you're talking about somebody that outside of their weight class, I mean, even Frankie said he's probably been a bantamweight his whole career and just didn't want to do it. So I mean, if you're talking about somebody that has transcended weight classes.
You've seen the food up in Jersey. You wouldn't want to cut weight either.
Exactly. So that's why I don't drop to 35. But also, I'm pretty lean walking around the way I am when I cut to 45. So.
I mean, you got to get a slice, right?
I occasionally, I don't eat too much pizza. I usually, I'm at this point in my life now where if it doesn't improve me, I try to avoid it most of the time. So, because I realize, I'm.
Are you closer to Philly or are you closer to New York?
I live in Philly actually now.
Oh, okay, so.
But I'm.
Now you got to get a cheesesteak. I'm
all over the place. Most people are pretty amazed that I'm up in North Jersey one morning and I'm back in Philly at night the next, and it's all over the place. But
what's the best cheesesteak in Philly?
Man.
We all know about the commercial, but what's the best one?
But Patagino's, like the Alessandro's is great. John's Roast Pork has some great ones. And then there's just a couple local joints in Northeast that are like absolutely killer.
I was so mad. There was a place I used to like in North Philly, and it was right on Broad Street or something like that. And it's now it was like one of those little like deli / drugstore places. Like, so it had like the little like grill counter at the drugstore.
Yep.
It was like Alfredo's or something like that. And I used to go in there all the time whenever I was in Philly, and I'd show people like, look, you've never had, like, this is the place cheesesteak. It was like $5. It was piled, like a foot long, piled high. And it was this old guy cooking and greasy, everything. And then they destroyed it. And I think they turned it into a CVS.
Of course. It's always, it's always pretty much if you just go into Philly, get lost and find a hole in the wall that sells cheesesteaks, it's probably damn good.
Probably the best ever, yeah. DC's got I just moved down to Tampa from DC, but DC's got a lot of ghost cheesesteak places popping up now, like doing the delivery only type things because of the pandemic. But back to you. So you switch over, you're training with Frankie, you're switching. At what point, because you're still an amateur at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at what point did you say, okay, I'm ready to make this jump. I'm ready to go pro, fight that Bellator 108 card in November 2013. What made you think you were ready?
Okay, so my amateur career, I started off 2-3 as an amateur, and then that was at 145. And then I remember
because you had more amateur fights than some of these guys have. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of guys nowadays they get maybe 4 and they go pro. I had 10.
Yeah.
So, but if you look at the trajectory of my amateur career, it was like win, loss, win, loss, and then I went win, and that was time when it was time to go pro. Because also I went up in weight. I went from 145 and I fought the last 5 fights of my amateur career at 155, and there was a pivotal moment in my amateur career. I fought a guy named James Curry for the XFE title. Dave Feldman ran XFE at the time, and I've never been so prepared for a fight in my life. I could spar 10 rounds straight and just not even be out of gas, and I remember it was a 3-minute round fight, and I gassed in the first minute, and I just had to gut it out. And
just like an adrenaline dump?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I was exhausted. My opponent was exhausted, and we fought tooth and nail all the way to the end, and I won by split decision. I remember the guy announcing it, he said it so slowly, out of the red corner, out of the blue corner, and the winner by split decision. You could hear a pin drop over at Harris Philly. It was Harris Chester at the time. And then when they announced me the winner, man, I lost it in there. Mike Bickings has a great photo of me, going nuts. And so after that, I won my first amateur title, and something clicked. And after that, I was a dominant force. My next fight, I guillotined a really high-level guy named Matt Ibbotson, who was under Steve Hague at the time, from the original Fight Factory. So you're talking about guys that churned out like Eddie Alvarez, Zach Makovsky. I beat him. I beat this.
You beat Fun Size Zach?
No. I beat one of his teammates.
Oh, okay.
White Zach. No, we were in different weight classes. But I beat like 3 other people, some tough prospects. And the last person I fought was Larry Holmes' nephew, a guy named Ryan Holmes. And I think I guillotined him in 20-something seconds, like 26 seconds.
Hold up. How is gigantic Larry Holmes have a nephew fighting at 145 pounds?
Well, okay. So first off, he was fighting at 155.
Okay, but still.
Second, this man.
Like I expect his nephew to be like 6'5", 230.
if you Google Ryan Holmes versus Ryan Cafaro, you might be able to find the fight. And when you see us line up against each other in the cage, like I have this killer look on my face, but I remember in the back of my head, I was like, "Oh, this is a big boy. We're in for a rough one." And yeah, he was colossal. He looked like he blew up to 180 overnight. And I was lucky if I gained 10 pounds back in amateur to go from 155 to like 165 ish.
He's chiseled too.
Yeah,
It's like pure muscle.
Absolutely,
I pulled a picture of him up. Yeah.
Yeah, and after I fought him, he actually power bombed somebody out cold and then called it a day. And I think he's like one of the main. He like runs a lot of Flow Wrestling stuff. He's like a very intelligent broadcaster or something like that. He's a very, very smart individual.
Yeah, you're his next to last fight. Yeah.
Yep. So
and he never fought pro.
Nope. But I mean, pro fighting is very it's a rough way to try to make a living and to try to go for it. And if your heart's not in it, I don't blame anyone for not going pro, or I don't blame anyone for calling it a day early. You know what I mean? I've had $500 paychecks here and there. You know what I mean? It's like you got to be able to make it work. And I've designed my entire life around being able to be sustainable as a pro fighter. I train fighters and I train, clients and things like that. And, it's not easy. I'm stretched. It's hard playing this balancing act. You know what I mean? It's hard to find a fight when I'm in the middle of preparing like a Sajara or Frankie or Katlyn for their fights. But I find a way to do it because I want to get it done and I still want to fight. And I still believe I have all the tools to make it to the UFC and to be a UFC fighter. So like, I'm not giving up by any means of the imagination. Anderson Silva made his UFC debut when he was 31. So I'm right there.
And Anderson didn't have the best record for a while. He just, he got hot and then he got hot for a long time.
Right. So I'm just, it's kind of like, I feel like my pro career is going very similar to my amateur career. I just need to find that one fight that's going to make everything click. And I was on a hot streak for a while. I started going after too big a fish too quickly. Like if you look at my streak, when I started killing it, when I went on like a 5-fight win streak, I beat somebody named Al Jones. I think he took that fight short notice, but I was slated to fight someone 4-0 at the time. Then I fought Adley Edwards, who was undefeated. He was 2-0 at the time, and he was slated to fight on the Contender Series at this point. I'm his only loss. We had one of the best fights, one of the best regional fights, I would say, in my opinion. It was an extremely back and forth fight. Could have gone either way. He was 2-0. Then I fought somebody named Chris Humes Mitchell, who was 3-0.
Which you're welcome, by the way. We were the good luck charm before that fight.
Oh, absolutely. That was the interview. Yep. Right before that.
So. And now that we're interviewing you again, so if you win your next fight, you just got to keep coming on here before every fight.
Absolutely. So, yeah, we're just manifesting good energy here, positive vibes, all that stuff.
100%.
My opponent's records went from like 2-0, 3-0, then all of a sudden I went to like 15-5, and then I fought Scott Heckman, who was like 25-8, something like that at the time. So I just kept going after bigger fish, because I just, I thought I would just blow all of them out of the water. And then, I lost that fight against Scott Heckman. I actually transitioned into Muay Thai for a little while. I won an advanced amateur Muay Thai fight because evidently I was allowed to fight Class A in New Jersey, and I had never fought. For being a striking coach, I've never actually fought a straight Muay Thai match until then. And then after I won that one, I went pro in Muay Thai. I fought at the Hulu Theater in Madison Square Garden against a really tough Muay Thai fighter named Ethan Geffen, and I beat him in New York, and he's a New Yorker, and it was a crazy back and forth one as well. So although I have some losses and back and forth, and consecutively I have wins with Muay Thai in between those. So it's not like I've been inactive for a full year, and I'm never really inactive. I'm constantly training. I'm constantly a main sparring partner for a guy like Frankie, for some of these guys like I mimicked Jeremy Stevens when Zabit was fighting him. I do a pretty good job of mimicking a lot of people. Like when I used to work with Marlon Moraes when he was around, I mimicked damn near everybody for him.
That kind of goes to my next question. So you had your debut. You lost, unfortunately, TKO in the second round, and then you didn't fight for over a year. Was that because of confidence? That was because of timing? That was because of scheduling?
At that point, I thought I was done. So I started working at a gym, working at a UFC gym out in Pennsylvania. And I was just getting into the flow of being a personal trainer and teaching classes, and it's comfortable. You do well, you make a living, and I'm starting to make these handsome paychecks and things like that. And I was comfortable, but I wasn't happy. And then my manager at the time, Jimmy Bins, the late Jimmy Bins, God bless him, he offered me a fight for his promotion Matrix fights. And it was kind of like a nice bounce back fight, and I took the fight, and when I won that fight, it just fired me up to be a competitor again. And after that, I just after that, I think after that fight, which was my second pro fight, I realized like I still want to fight, and I quit my job as an in-house UFC gym trainer, and I started doing my own thing, and working a little more part-time and working a little more on my own, off the book sort of thing like that. And I started training full-time with, all the guys in Philly, like the Renzo Gracie Philly team, Jonavin, Paul Felder, Sean Brady, that whole group of killers that were on their way up at the time. And I went on a little bit of a streak, doing stuff like that. So
yeah, I'm trying to get Jonavin to get that itch back too. I was pushing him during the interview. I was like, "Come on, Jonavin, come on!" And then he went out and won a grappling tournament, or not a grappling tournament. He won a grappling match.
A super
fighter. He's
fighter.
got like another one. Like that guy has so much talent.
Man, when I tell you that Jonavin he would just hit the most gangster shit in matches. I would watch him like go into tournaments and just like he would go against these roided up meatheads, and he would just make them look so dumb. Oh, it's so cool watching Jonavin grapple. I could watch him grapple all day. And I'm still to this day pretty pumped that I'm a blue belt under him, technically. So, but yeah, he's a man for sure. And that's pretty much. There was a point in my career where I suffered a really bad neck injury. There was one point where I planned on dropping to 135. And I had cut all the way to 140. And then when I actually made the drop to 135, I lost 3 or 4 opponents in a one fight camp. Even I had one pull out 3 days before. And I at that point, I was just accepting anyone and everyone. And, Rob Haydick and Arias Garcia, they bent over backwards to find me an opponent who drove all the way from Canada on 3 days notice to fight me. And he missed weight, and I think the athletic commissioner wouldn't approve it, but I was down to like, we had to do a catch weight of 140, and I was like 139, and he was 144, something like that, and they wouldn't approve it. And then I herniated a disc badly in my neck during that camp, and I didn't know. And then after the fight got scrapped, I woke up the next day with just excruciating pain, and I lost all the strength in my left arm. I had to take a full year off to recover and do rehab and things like that. Funny story about that. I had this bad injury with my herniated disc in my neck, and I lost the strength in my left arm and stuff like that. And I remember when I started training Frankie a couple months after I had healed up and started rehabbing. And I remember Frankie saying something like, "Oh yeah, I had the same thing." And I was like, "What did you do for it?" He's like, "Oh, I got like an epidural, and then I fought BJ Penn." Like, what? Are you kidding me? I took like a full year to rehab this thing, and he's just like, shoot something to my neck. I'll go defend my world title. Like, if we're talking about how badass Frankie Edgar is. So
never a question.
Right. But that brings us to a very pivotal moment. So I had been, holding pads for Paul when he was on his way up, just to help him out. And I was like kind of like a backup guy for him. And then, as we've been working together, especially once he was like a couple fights into the UFC, I just, I was a more prominent help for his camps and things like that. And I held pads for him more and more and more. And I had been holding for him a lot. And then he started working with Rich Polar, who's Eddie Alvarez's strength coach at the time. And I remember they were lifting weights together. And then Eddie Alvarez and Mark Henry had a scheduling conflict where they couldn't work together that day or something. And Paul says to Eddie, he's like, "Why don't you hit up my guy Ryan? He can hold pads pretty well." And like, I've sparred Eddie before at this point. Eddie knows who I am, but he doesn't. I don't coach him. So then, Eddie hits me up on my phone out of nowhere, and he's like, "Hey, can you hold pads for me?" And he was in Jersey lifting. I was in Philly working out at the time. I dropped everything, and I flew right across the bridge.
Is this like top of his game Bellator, or is this like when he's in UFC at this point?
I think he was the lightweight champ at the time.
For which one though?
I think he was the UFC lightweight champ at the time.
Okay.
I think he was Dos Anjos.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a timetable for people at
Yeah,
home.
it was like right before or right after. There's actually a picture of it on Instagram that I'll send you after the interview where you can figure out exactly when it
So
was.
a little bit before he fought Connor.
Yeah, it was a very pivotal day for me because the timeline goes, Paul tells Eddie to hit pads with me. I drive, train Eddie. Eddie likes it. Then Eddie tells Marlon about it. Marlon likes hitting pads with me because he, schedules a session with me. He likes it. Then he tells Frankie about it. And then before I know it, I'm working with Eddie, Marlon, and Frankie. And, I can't believe what's going on. You know what I mean? It's like these guys were, were whooping my ass in the gym, but now I'm one of their striking coaches. So and also, it takes a while to build that repertoire and that energy and that confidence and trust in a coach.
And like we were talking about earlier, chemistry.
Mm-hmm. And I bring an intense energy to fighting and to coaching and things like that. And I push a pace when I'm holding pads for people. I make it very applicable for MMA. I'm not, holding pads like your classic Thai coach, ooh-wee here, ooh-wee there. You know what I mean? My striking style is very MMA oriented. I do a lot of takedown feints and things of that nature and defending takedowns in the middle of holding pads. I'll shoot on somebody in the middle of them holding pads. And a lot of times they don't see it coming. But
before we transition into your coaching fully, and I do want to talk about that, especially with Sarge and Katlyn and everybody and Claudia. But so real quick on your fighting career, somebody offers you a fight tomorrow.
Yep, give it to me. I'm in fight shape right now, so I have been prepared to take a fight since the pandemic started. When I flew to Florida to coach Sarge in her fight on that card, I told Sean Shelby and Mick Maynard, I am keeping my weight within 10 pounds of the weight. If one of I said there are 6 145 pounders on this card. If one of them falls out, I'll be more than willing to step in. I have all my paperwork, I have all my blood work, my physical, everything. And somebody actually fell out, and they were supposed to fight Giga Chikadze, and I wasn't given the opportunity, I believe, because of my record, which I completely understand. I was coming off a loss. The UFC is looking for people that are hot and coming off wins, and I understand.
Yeah.
So
they're looking for those like 8-1 guys, 9-0.
But what do I got to do? I got to win a fight. So
yeah.
I'll fly anywhere. I'll fly to Texas. I'll fly to California, Florida, you name it. Whatever I got to do to find a regional fight, I will do it. I will show out. And you know what I mean? I just need that one fight where I got to just say, screw it and go out there and fight to my full potential. And I believe.
Would you go overseas, like somewhere like KSW or something like that?
I would go anywhere. If I'd fly to Bahrain, wherever I got to go. But I believe if you find me a fight and I fight to my fullest potential, which I will, I'm in the UFC. I believe I'm UFC caliber. I know it. I know it in my heart because I'm in the room giving no easy rounds to guys like Frankie, Eddie, Paul Felder, this, that, and the third. So I'm ready for it, and I'm in shape, and I live this 24/7, 365.
Yeah, I think you would be perfect in a place like Brave. Has a lot of the lighter weight fighters. Place like Lux is doing their thing down in Mexico City. Like they have a lot of the lighter weight fighters. I think you'd be perfect for that.
If you know anybody that wants to send me their way, please, spread the word on that.
I might know a guy. I'll connect you offline. I might know a guy because honestly, I mean, you're just an exciting fighter. Like we've seen a couple of your fights. We've seen you get in that cage, and it's not just strike until you hurt people, which is definitely fun. that's something people like. But the guillotines, the grappling, you grapple with some of the top level guys too. It's not just you train with Schulman, you train with Nick Catone, you train with Frankie and Eddie and all these guys. Brandon likes to always say on our other show, Catino, sometimes like we've seen 3 straight major strikers like in the female division get their first ever submission win. We saw GDR get her sub. We saw Cyborg copy her and get her first submission. And then we just saw Lauren Murphy get her first ever submission. And like all these girls are going off getting their first ever submission. Like, and we talk about it like, yeah, they're strikers first, but they train in everything.
Yeah.
You give them their neck, you give them their back, they know what to do.
Yeah.
So you've always been pretty well-rounded. And while you're known for your striking, you're definitely well-rounded. So it would be a fun fight to see you anywhere, whether it's LFA or Lux or anywhere. So
yeah.
Speaking of Muay Thai, I know there's a competition coming out in San Diego soon. So
like I said, at this point, I'll just take whatever it takes, whenever, wherever. Where do I go?
I don't know. We lost you for a second, but you're back.
Yeah, I'll take whatever, wherever. I just want to fight at this point. Like I'll fight. Be at short notice. I understand. with the current way that the world is, you don't get 8-week fight camps anymore on the regional circuit. In the UFC, practically, you don't get 8-week fight camps. So
you don't get fight camps, and then you got to go through testing. You got to go through the COVID stuff and everything.
And I mean, the thing is, I've taken, at this point, I have all the experience for the UFC except actually getting in there and fighting. I've fought. Excuse me, somebody called.
No worries.
Me. I've fought. I've warmed up in that cage with multiple fighters. I did it for Frankie in Canada, in Korea when I cornered him there. I've been in the UFC octagon more times than I can count, and it just feels right. And I
want to know why they don't let. And I've had everybody tell me every single reason why, like logistically why. I wonder why they don't let anybody fight in that outside cage in Abu Dhabi. Like that cage, I know it's like it's hot, the sun's out,
okay,
accidents, liability. That would be the most exciting thing you could put on TV. When you talk about Fight Island, but you're fighting in a bubble, it doesn't matter if you're on Fight Island or if you're in Las Vegas. Nobody knows the difference. You're in a bubble. Yeah. But like when you see you guys like posing outside, I've seen you, I've seen, Angela Hill, I've seen a bunch of people doing stuff in that cage outside. I'm like, that is so cool. Like as a fan first, forget the MMA journalist part, forget the fact that I, no fighting in and out. As a fan, that would be killer. Like that would make me watch.
Yeah. So here's my reasoning for that. I think that someone would suffer heat stroke. When I say that it was 120 degrees out every day in Abu Dhabi, it was 120 degrees out. Like the water out there felt like hot bath water. It was insane how hot it was. And if you watch people work out in that cage, if they're not working out with shoes, they're getting blisters because of how hot that canvas is. You notice not a lot of people in there are practicing grappling because they will literally burn.
No, I think most people are just taking it for a photo op.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what we did it for. We were all there for the photo op. Some people actually, I saw training in there. I saw like a decent amount of people. Dean Thomas was training his girl over there. And just a lot of the foreign fighters were hitting pads in there just to make sure they got a good feel for the cage. Some of the workout rooms in Abu Dhabi were relatively small. But it's just, I understand the logistics of it, and God forbid something goes wrong or,
Yeah, it just looks cool. Like I know realistically it would never happen, but it just looks cool.
I mean, Eddie Alvarez did it back in Bodog. I think he fought on a ring on the beach or something like that back in the day. And that was the original Fight Island from what he's told me. So,
yeah, I think I know what you're talking about too. I think I've seen clips of it back in the day.
Well,
speaking of Fight Island, speaking of all that, let's transition. So you've trained with some of the toughest guys on the planet. We just named a who's who of list of fighters. How did you transition from that? And I know like you're still waiting for a fight, that's obvious, but how did you transition from that to fighting or to training some of the toughest girls on the planet? We're talking about Sarge. We've mentioned her on our shows a few times. Katlyn, who just, fought not too long ago for the title. How did you transition to that to becoming like a trainer for some of the top level women in the sport?
Yeah. So I do pride myself on my ability to mimic fighters and to have a level of control in the gym that a lot of people can't recreate, especially when it comes to sparring women. I have given, like Katlyn and I have always trained sporadically. Like I've held pads for her occasionally when she's been in town. And then in the room, like we've sparred each other and we've had some really aggressive back and forth goes. But I'm not trying to kill her. You know what I mean? I'm trying to kill her without trying to hurt her, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're trying to make her better.
Right. So like Katlyn and I we would get after it in the gym, and it looks.
Plus, Katlyn's not a small, like she's like 5'9", lengthy.
Yeah, she's a bad bitch for sure. So I also I had a pivotal moment. I cornered Jamie Colleen in King of the Cage. Actually, I think it was 3 weeks before one of my own fights. I think before my third pro fight. She asked me to corner her for King of the Cage, fly across the country to go corner her in California against Dynamite Danielle Taylor, who at the time was 5-0. And Jamie Colleen was 1-0 at the time. And before my own fight, she asked me, she was like, I have no one to corner me. And I said, all right, screw it, I'll do it. So I flew out with Jamie Colleen. We flew out there. I helped her cut weight. I helped her work out. I cooked her food for her, all that stuff. And that was my first experience cutting weight with a woman before. And I learned a lot of very important things. Cutting weight with a guy and cutting weight with a girl are completely different. Like, you have to be a specialist and you have to know how to help a woman cut weight. It's
Yeah,
completely
that was
different.
always a big deal with Cyborg. Like when they were
Yeah.
trying to like get that fight, and Rousey said she would only fight her at 135.
Mhm.
Cyborg's like, I can't make 135,
Yeah.
and it's just a
Also,
different body dynamic.
well, she's a hulking beast of a woman. So, but
Muscles on muscles, but there's more lean muscle. Like guys
right.
have more fat deposits.
Yeah, and frankly, she's just not a 135er. She never has been. She never will be.
She almost killed herself trying to make 140 catch weight.
Yeah. Um. So, but yeah. So I cornered Jamie Colleen, and she actually became the king of the cage strawweight champ and knocked out Danielle Taylor in like the fourth round. It was a very crazy fight, and she actually, defended her title a little bit, and then actually got fights on the Contender Series off it. So I was definitely proud to be a part of that, and that gave me the confidence in helping women. And then after after we did our original written interview, and I fought Adley Edwards, I beat Adley Edwards on Saturday, and on Sunday I was on a flight to go to Vegas to help Eddie Alvarez film The Ultimate Fighter. So it was when Eddie Alvarez and Justin Gaethje were the coaches, and that's where I met Sijara Eubanks. And Sarge and we clicked immediately. I had a week with her to help her cut weight, and I cornered her for her fight against Deanna Bennett. And she had a rough weight cut because at the time she was making 125, and it was that for a woman, even for a guy, cutting weight back to back to back to back in maybe a 2-month span. I mean, and I think one of her towards the end of the series, it's like she made weight 1 week and then she has to make weight a week later. So it throws your hormones off. You have these nasty bounce backs in terms
Well,
of
you
like
saw the whole world, like you saw the whole MMA world go into shock when Tony Ferguson did it to himself, like 2 weeks in a row. And
yeah,
like a lot of people still think that's the reason why he looks so lethargic against Gaethje.
it definitely doesn't help. I think
Yeah.
that while I appreciate Tony Ferguson's mental fortitude and his unorthodox methods, I think that there is a method to the madness, but to an extent. And I think that you cutting weight and making your weight class when, he's not a small guy by any means of the imagination, when he makes weight for what was it, like 3 weeks before his fight?
Yeah, only 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah.
It was relatively soon, and then he goes out there and
he did it for the original date for him and Khabib, and then when that fight was canceled again, then he went and he had to redo it again when the Gaethje fight got announced on short notice.
Cutting weight is rough. It is a rough thing, and frankly, I wish that we would I wish all promotions would adopt the 1FC hydration test, but I also understand the logistics of it. It's a lot harder than it actually seems. And
I just wish they get rid of weight cutting.
Yeah, it would be great, but
I get everybody wants an advantage. You have people to cut down. Honestly, I think they should weigh the fighters like maybe a week before the fights, and then if they're blow up after that, they blow up that. But the healthiness, like the fighter would be healthy. Like you see so many, like Renan Barao, like I still remember him like getting rushed to the hospital. Paul Daly, even though he didn't get an IV, he got rushed to the hospital a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
It just happens more often than not that some of these guys and girls are risking their lives just to get a slight advantage. Not even like we just talked about Frankie Edgar. Frankie Edgar went in against the guys like they're cutting weight to 155. They're probably walking at 185, 180.
Ray Maynard looked like he was a $180.
Yeah, and Frankie still did his business. If you're a fighter, if you're a talented fighter, as long as it's within a certain window, like I'm not going to say anything crazy. Like you're not going to go in there and get into a heavyweight fight. No,
right.
They lean on you, then they're going to take all your gas away. There's different levels to this, but if you're within a certain range, I don't, as a fan, I don't see the problem. Like I think weight cutting should be gone.
Here's what I think. I think weighing should be done practically right before you step in the cage.
Yeah.
But I also the logistics of that are complicated as well, because imagine you have Conor versus Khabib and it's at 170 and they go and Conor steps in the cage and he's 170 on the dot and walks up, and then Khabib steps in the cage and he's 172 and the fight is off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't fix that because it happened that quickly. There's no room for bounce around, and I understand that.
Yeah, I've been saying for a while, I think they should do it a week before and then like maybe the day before just to make sure they stay on weight.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
And then you wouldn't have to worry about people crashing to like try to cut weight because they'd cut it a week before and then they just have to maintain.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an answer to the problem. We just haven't figured it out yet.
I just don't think they want to figure it out. I think that's something Dana just doesn't want to worry about. And the other promoters, like I said, I like what you said. ONE FC. I think every fighter I've talked to, ONE FC has the way to do it.
Yeah, I also, yeah, I also I've never. Have you ever seen a video of like a weigh-in for ONE FC?
Mm, I want to say yes, but not off the top of my head.
I'd like to actually see the process involved because I just don't know how it works.
I don't think they've ever shown like the full process. I feel like they've done like the little posing videos for weigh-ins, like some people do. I remember when DJ first got his first fight over there, and I remember seeing the weigh-in for that. But I don't think I actually saw like anything behind the scenes as far as how they do it. I just think they did the promotional part.
I would love ONE FC, share the logistics and share the protocol for that, so the other promotions could act accordingly.
Yeah, I think it's just too many politics involved, and they just don't want to deal with it.
Of course, there's always politics involved. That's what a lot of people don't understand about the sport. But I mean, there's politics involved in basketball. There's politics in MMA. There's politics in politics. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, for better or worse, whether people love or hate USADA, I mean, they gave a uniform body to like testing and throughout the sport and throughout the country.
I appreciate it.
Versus every like commission having their own guy.
Yeah, I like USADA, and I think that a lot of people's performances look very, very different when USADA came around.
Yeah, I mean, GSP pushed for it. He wanted a different promotion. They ended up going with USADA instead, but it was definitely something that he helped push, and then now all of a sudden it's everywhere, and it's unless they go out of the country for certain things, but you try to avoid situations where John Jones is hiding under a cage, but but for the most part, it's pretty fair, and I think a lot of you still get see guys getting busted and girls getting busted, but not as much anymore because they know they can get tested anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone's careful. I know guys like personally, like Sean Brady and Paul Felder, they're so meticulous about what they put in their body. They're like, if it's not USADA approved, I'm not fucking touching it because they don't want to compromise their legacy, through some sort of tainted nonsense. You know what I mean? If it's a protein powder that was made in China and somebody sprinkled a little crack in, you know what I mean? You never know. So.
Yeah, you saw Anderson Silva deal with that. The whole gym basically went down because of supplements.
Yeah, so
that questioned his whole legacy.
Mm-hmm. The whole legacy thing is and the whole pound for pound great of all time argument. I just think it comes down to if you have a positive test on your record, your legacy has an asterisk next to it always.
Yeah, we had that fight on Tuesday. Me and Sergio were talking about the end of the show. We were just not a fight, disagreement. Mm-hmm. I said Khabib is the greatest of all time because he doesn't have an asterisk. Like you can question a couple decisions on a couple early fights. You can question, some things about the fights getting canceled and stuff like that, make him wait. But when he was in the cage, you didn't see him with any like the argument against John Jones is obviously right. Like he has the personal issues, the demons with the DUIs, the cocaine, drug bust. You have the problems with him getting stripped for the belt.
Yeah. What he does outside of the octagon, I don't give a shit. I really don't.
But it affected him in the octagon.
Right. So, like, if you hit, a pregnant woman and stuff like that, it's terrible. And obviously, you're judged as a person for it. But when you test positive for a performance-enhancing drug, that is a problem.
Yeah, and he's not just he had the problem, like we said, the personal problems. Then he also got popped, and when he got popped and he got stripped of his title not once but twice, how can you make that argument against a guy who's never? Yeah, I get 15 title defenses, I get it, but Khabib has never lost. He's never had any kind of like questionable history. He's as clean cut as it gets.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a debate. I don't know who would you pick as the greatest of all time right now?
Honestly, at this point, it's. I mean, if you look at raw title defenses, you do pick Jones. But honestly, the way that Jones is acting on Twitter right now, I almost want to pick Khabib just to spite him. He's just there's a way that I feel like as a champion you should handle yourself with grace and poise, and I feel like that with the whole the way that John is throwing these temper tantrums about being the pound for pound number one, he's handling it with the grace and poise of Melvin Manhoef in a bar fight in a china shop. It's just not. There's just not a whole lot of, you know what I mean?
You have a tendency to drop some of the best quotes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, that's the kind of if you picture that in your head, you imagine Melvin Manhoef swinging off on four people, shattering china all over the place. That's the kind of grace and poise that I feel like John Jones is addressing this situation with.
I mean, I think John Jones is like one of the most talented fighters to ever step foot in the cage. And I've never been a big Khabib fan. I've never been like, I've rooted against him almost every single fight. And it's just one of those things where, but you got to look at facts. And facts are that he's never lost, 29-0.
Yep.
He's fought people they've put in front of him. Some fights have happened. Some fights haven't happened for various reasons. Some are his fault. One of them was Tony's fault. Like it's happened. And it is what it is. But the people he's put in front of him, he's beaten. Some of them really haven't been close. I mean, people thought Gaethje might be the one to knock him off. He finished him in the second round. Almost finished him at the end of the first round. Yeah. Conor, what happens in a rematch, we'll never know now because I believe Khabib's done. I think he's one of those people who kind of stays by his word. If he says he's done, he's done.
Yep.
So I guess we'll know. I think for John Jones' sake, I do think he beats Adesanya. I don't think that's even a question. I think he would crush Adesanya. But I also think Adesanya would crush Whitaker if they had a rematch. So
I think people would be surprised if Adesanya and Jones fought. I really do. I think Adesanya has a real serious shot at beating him. I think his skill set transcends weight classes, and I think that
I don't think his skill set. I don't think his skill set's the problem. I just think John Jones can do everything he can do, but also can wrestle.
So I would have agreed with you a couple fights ago, and I just feel like I feel like now that Stylebender is on a different level. I just feel like I feel like he hasn't shown what he's capable of fully yet in terms of his groundwork, in terms of his takedown defense, and I feel like Jones does his best work against people he has a range advantage on, and I don't think he would have much of a range advantage on Stylebender.
I don't both know. Lanky.
I don't know what their actual range and heights are, but I feel
it's
like
close.
Yeah,
it's like 6'5", 6'4", something like that.
Right.
6'3".
So I feel like that with an even playing field of range and length, if you look at the landscape of MMA right now, a lot of the most successful fighters are long and lanky. You look at a Ferguson, you look at a Max Holloway, you look at a Stylebender. The range is so hard to deal with. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The fighter evolution is these long, lanky guys that can control distance and have great timing. And Stylebender's got probably some of the best distance control in the game and some of the best timing in the game.
I mean, that's honestly why I think the Whitaker rematch, even though Whitaker 100% deserves a rematch after that last fight with Jarrett, I just don't see it going any different. Cannonier clearly showed that he's a victim. Like Whitaker can't stop the leg kicks again. And who does leg kicks better than Adesanya? You saw what happened to Costa.
Yeah, a lot of people don't give Stylebender the credit that he deserves when it comes to his fundamentals. They look at the sizzle, but they don't analyze the steak. He's got a missile of a jab with beautiful off timing, beautiful feints, and his entire style is built around feints, jabs, and low kicks. And I feel like a lot of people don't give Stylebender the credit that he deserves for just his basic bread and butter and what he's capable of with that.
Yeah, 100%. Before I let you get out of here, real quick, tonight you got Lima Mousasi. Who you think Lima's gonna just keep dominating?
Lima's a bad man. I heard through his manager and one of my friends, Brian Butler, that man kicks like a mule. He kicks like a 205er, and he's a 170-pounder. So
Sergio Da Silva keeps saying he's the best fighter in the planet.
He is definitely one of the top welterweights in the world.
He said no matter what promotion he fights in, he'd be a champ.
I think that I would be interested to see how he fares against the top level of wrestlers and guys like that at 170 against I would be interested to see how he fares against a Wonder Boy Thompson, like a higher level version of Venom Page. And then, when you look at the murderer's row of welterweights in the UFC, you look at
Usman and everybody.
Colby, Masvidal, they're all dangerous. So I would be interested to see how he fares against them. But I think that he's top 5 in the world for sure. But tonight I'm actually cornering at CFFC. It's my first time cornering a regional fight since the pandemic. I'm cornering my friend Lenny Rufati in the co-main event of the CFFC card tonight.
Nice. What's that, number 80 something?
89 maybe.
89. I know it's up there.
Yeah, it's up there. So
yeah, no, I'm gonna have to make sure we pay attention to those results. We've been trying to focus a little bit more on some of the regional stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's where Art of MMA really cut our teeth, talking to a lot of up and coming fighters. We want to give you guys the spotlight. We want to give you guys attention that you deserve. Of
Hey,
course, we would love to interview like John Jones. We'd love to interview Adesanya. That's great. But there, you can YouTube and there's like 85 interviews with those guys. These guys, people like yourself, Sarge, Katlyn, all those guys and girls on their way up, they deserve a spotlight too. Like we interviewed Shane Burgess right before he made his UFC debut, and then right after, which was really cool.
Yeah.
We've interviewed your boy Paul Felder before he made it to the pros and he was still in CFFC. Like we love that relationship and we love giving you guys a spotlight because it's really cool to know the next big thing. That's from, pat ourselves in the back, right? Like, that's cool. The amount of guys that we've interviewed that made the UFC, we're proud of, and we root for you guys like crazy when we see it too.
Yeah. Everyone also wants to hear what a UFC champion sounds like before they made it.
Oh, 100%. But also, I think there's a story to be told. I think, we heard your story and we heard everything, and there's a story you don't hear. Like when somebody makes it, you don't hear about the background. You don't hear about like where they came from. You just hear like, all right, what do you think about your next fight?
Absolutely.
They don't care about the rest. And Ryan, somebody like you, like we've been rooting for you for a while. Like I would love to see you back in the cage, and I'll definitely do my part trying to reach out and make that happen. But like I think some of the girls you're cornering right now, like Sajara Eubanks, like she's fought like 3 times this year, right? Like she's been active. She keeps going.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if she gets a 4th fight this year.
I wouldn't either. Her and then Angela Hill both have been like the 2 most active, like fighters, like constantly. Like Angela's like pretty much like the female cowboy right now. Anytime somebody calls, she picks up and fights.
I'm gonna right now pay attention to Sarge in the next 3 fights. In her next 3 fights, like big things are coming. And Sarge and I are working very, very diligently and aggressively this entire quarantine, and she has gotten so much better. Just wait and see.
Now I know Shorty Rock was working with her too. Is he like working more with the grappling stuff?
Yeah. I mean, Shorty can do. I mean, he can do things on the ground that you couldn't even think of. He's like a human twister. So.
Oh yeah, I call him the best kept secret. I've been calling him that for years.
Absolutely.
In that 125 to 35 pound division.
Yeah, he's the number 1 regional flyweight for sure.
And now he's got that contract with Brave. I can't wait to see him fighting more. I want to see that rematch. I want to see that rematch with him and the other Shorty.
Torres. Yeah, towards that as well.
Ryan, I'm gonna let you get out of here. I kept you long enough, man. I really appreciate you taking time. You are always more than welcome to jump back on if you want to join any of the roundtables on Tuesday and chop it up with us talking about fights. Please do. You got my number. Hit me up. But ladies and gentlemen, this has been Art of MMA Conversations. Make sure you pay attention to Ryan's CFFC cornering debut tonight. And you
tons of time.
Well, not debut, but I mean
my regional MMA cornering.
Yeah. I butchered that. So we're gonna cut that out. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Everything's live. It is on it. But pay attention to CFFC tonight. We love covering the regional fights. Pay attention to Bellator tonight. Some good stuff going on. A lot of fights going on. Both UFC. UFC's back this weekend with Hall versus Silva. Quick, who do you think? Do you think Anderson Silva still keeps fighting, or do you think this is it?
I think he's done.
You think it's his choice, or you think it's Dana's?
I think it's his choice. Okay. He has nothing at this point.
Yeah, I just don't think. I don't think he's going to stop. I think it's like Roy Jones Jr. I don't think he's going to stop.
Well, then I hope he stops.
For his sake, yeah. Sometimes you got to protect a fighter from himself.
Yeah, the idea of Roy Jones and Mike Tyson fighting just makes me legitimately sad. I don't want to see it.
I heard the other day they banned knockouts in the fight, so I don't know what's going to happen now.
Okay, well then, yeah, like I said, this shouldn't happen. So,
in order for the commission to sanction them, it was supposed to be an exhibition, and then it got real serious, and now the commission. I've been looking for backup on this story, but the commission, I guess, came back and said that, all right, but no knockouts, and I don't know if that means they're going to wear headgear or what, but like they wanted it to be a friendly exhibition, and now all of a sudden it got serious. And so the commission got scared that they don't want one of these 50-plus-year-old fighters getting hurt. So
yeah, I don't want to see it. So, but
I think I think Mike Tyson would kill somebody right now. So I really don't want to see that happen to Roy.
I feel like Mike Tyson will be able to kill someone with one punch until the day he dies.
Vicious.
Yeah, but you know.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But I just want to say thank you again for having me on the show, and thank you to everyone that still believes in me and still follows my career. And I just want to say I'm not done by any means of the imagination. You find me a fight, I'm gonna show what I'm truly capable of.
Real quick before I let you get out of here, I'll plug where they can find you online.
You can find me at just about anything at Ryan Cafaro MMA, Facebook,
Awesome.
Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I have 10,000 followers, so because of my cats. But yeah, so you can just follow me at Ryan Cafaro MMA, and I'm anywhere and everywhere.
All right, Ryan. Thank you so much. I'll put all those links in the show notes for people to get a hold of you. I don't know about the TikTok. I don't know if we're going to add that one or not. We'll see. See what kind of mood I am in later. But thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Art of MMA Conversations. I hope you're really enjoying the series. Make sure you like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let us know what you like about it, and we'll keep going. Until next week, thank you so much. We're out.